Hello, all. Welcome back to another episode of Run Yogi Diaries. Well, we are here at the end of the year and embarking on a new year. So, we have a slightly different conversation today. A conversation about how to complete a year that went by and create an extraordinary new year. For which I have a dear friend, Mahesh Nambiar, who spent most of his life in the area of personal transformation and coaching. He has helped scores of people find their true self and lead extraordinary lives. I hope you enjoy this conversation. If you like the work I do in this channel, please remember to hit subscribe, press like, and leave your comments. And remember to share this video if you love the conversation. Thank you. This episode is also available on all the major podcast platforms such as Apple, Google, Spotify, Anchor, and others. Let's dig in. Hi Mahesh, welcome to Run Yogi Diaries.
Hi, welcome. Thank you for welcoming me.
Absolutely, it's a pleasure. And today is we're doing a slightly different type of conversation. Most of my conversations in this podcast are with runners and endurance athletes. Um, Today we're having a conversation with you, who spent most of your life in the area of personal transformation, and that applies to all domains and aspects of one's life, which includes fitness, well-being, and health. Although we will focus on your wisdom around the fitness and endurance area, but whatever we discuss in this conversation is applicable to all parts of life. So, the focus of today's podcast is really how do we complete the past year, and how do we focus on creating goals and vision for the coming year, right? That's really the focus of today's conversation. So, without further ado, let me maybe request you to do a quick personal introduction, and then we'll jump in.
Sure. So, as we know each other, my background is I live in Bangalore and I have been in the world of, making available transformation for people for the last 27 years. You know, I think we started the journey together back in 1994. And
Yeah.
then you moved to different path and I continued in this path and expanded the work of transformation in India and have been leading transformation programs around the world, maybe more than 1.5 lakh people, and in the process caused thousands of leaders who lead transformation programs. So it was a real privilege for 27 years to make a difference in people's lives, contribute, whether it's their business, their relationships, their health, their fitness, money, any aspect can be transformed and anything is possible.
Yeah, and before we get into it, maybe we should talk about what is transformation, because that's
Hmm.
one word that's the most it's one of the most misunderstood or
Yeah,
misused word in the
yeah,
world, right? Everybody
yeah,
means different things. So yeah,
yeah, yeah.
so your
So,
views on it.
yeah, sure. So, if you look at mostly people confuse it with change.
Hmm.
And let's look at the nature of change. Change is always more, better, different. Have a better job, have a different relationship. Let's have an improved year this year. But if you look at more, better, different, they're all connected to what? Some reference, which is the past.
Hmm.
And what
Hmm.
I worked on, the opportunity I had to work with people for 27 years was they bringing forth something which didn't exist before, like a new paradigm. And that new paradigm, if you look at the word new, has no reference to the past. It's not an extension of the past. It's not an improved version of the past, more, better, different. So,
Yeah.
what I meant by transformation was people bringing forth something radically new which did not exist before.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
basically, it leaves people in the space of uncertainty And most
Hmm.
people cannot be with the space of uncertainty. Whereas for me, I think uncertainty is a very high state in life. That's the space of
Hmm.
creation.
Yeah, absolutely. And I
So I
think
hope that clarifies what you
that
asked.
that does clarify, and that also creates a powerful context, right?
Mm,
Because for people who are listening to this, who are in pursuit of running a marathon or doing an
mm.
Ironman or
Yeah,
pursuing fitness,
yeah,
you are dealing with uncertainty every time you say you will do something in
yeah,
that domain. Running the first marathon is committing to a completely uncertain future.
yeah.
Right. So just that's a great context to set up. Yeah, that's powerful.
And if you're running a marathon and if you have a reference, oh, that person did that in this timing, this person, oh, I got to beat that record, then it leaves you constrained versus you
Yeah,
really creating your own record, a new reality, a new pathway.
yeah, absolutely. Terrific. Great. So obviously we're going to dig into that, and
Mhm.
but before we dig into the creating the future and embracing uncertainty, let's maybe spend some time around how do we complete the
Hmm.
the last year, right? How
Yeah,
do we create peace and completion
yeah,
in that what went by, both good
yeah.
and bad, right? So that we so yeah.
Yeah, so before we look at completion, we need to look at a common misunderstanding people have. You know, completion is distinct from ending something.
Hmm.
Like you could end a relationship and not be complete.
Hmm.
You could end a job and not be complete. You could end an activity but not be complete.
Yeah.
So if you look, the year would end, has ended. We're not going to revisit the past anyway. But then, when things are not complete, we drag the past, good, bad, ugly, into the future.
Hmm.
So, why completion is necessary so that the past is put back where it belongs to. We're not carrying the past to the future. So if you really look at December 31st, 2022, if you look right now, standing here on the 1st of January, what is really there is nothing.
Hmm.
So if I ask you something unimaginable, I bet most of us, given the way our brain is wired, what is unimaginable? We would reference it to some past and then project in the future. And why is it reference to the past? Because something is incomplete, something not put back where it belongs to.
Yeah.
So every year I did some reflection, and the first thing I had to get was I, including all of us, are not mindful. And we're not mindful that we're not mindful.
Hmm.
And if you're not mindful, we can't reflect back and see what is incomplete, what is not whole, like the way it is not, with nothing
Hmm.
to be changed. So I did a simple exercise. I would lock myself in a room for an hour at the end of the year. And I do this with my projects, with whatever games I took on in life, so that the next game I play is not an extension of what I did before,
Hmm.
including 27 years of doing the work in the transformational space. I had to take the time to reflect back, complete that 27 years so that whatever is the future, I'm not extrapolating or doing more, better, different than what I did. That's complete. And then I would ask myself, can I tell you what exactly I did?
Yeah.
So I would ask myself a couple of questions. And the first thing is, what were some of the commitments I made in this year 2021, which is not fulfilled, which is broken? I would really list them all down. And then I would look at what are some of my failures? Where did I fail? Now, if you don't get straight about where did you fail, it lives like I'm a failure. I'm a failure is very distinct from I failed to produce the result and be very specific about it. And then I look at what regrets do I have for the year. Oh, I wish I should have done that. Oh, I wish I should have stretched myself. I wish I should have invested in that stock and I didn't do it in the right time, and all kinds of things,
Yeah.
And just the question has me inquire and discover there's so much running in the background. It's like you having so many files open in your computer, the system
Mm.
slows down. So, same in a brain, we have so many stuff stored in. And this exercise of reflecting back, getting mindful, enables you to become aware of what is incomplete. Because the first thing is you got to be mindful about what is incomplete, then you can complete it, bring it to completion.
Yeah. Yeah.
Either do
Yeah.
something about it or say, okay, this is what happened, this is what I did, this is what I didn't do, without any significance added to whatever is there. Then I ask questions, any resentments I have, and I look at all my important relationships, people at work, people at home, the family, friends. Do you have any resentments? Because in the course of life, things happen, people say things, we get bitter, we get hurt. And to say that none of that happens to me is, I think, not really practical. So we are
Yeah.
human beings and we have our own identity, and who knows what someone says, what we get hooked by, what we get triggered by.
Hmm.
So reflecting on that question has me look, and maybe there's nothing there, but at least go name by name and then one by one, if at all there's something, an opportunity to take responsibility and be complete with that person.
Yeah.
And then also, one thing very important is to look at what we accomplished. Because many times, success has many fathers. And when we accomplish many things, we don't take the time to acknowledge, admit, get to the source of the accomplishment, so that we are the source of the accomplishment, not the circumstances, not
Hmm.
somebody else outside of us. So when we are the source of the accomplishment, we can water the tree and have those fruits happen ongoingly. Because many times people get carried away by the fruits
Yeah.
and never water the tree. So I list out all that is accomplished in the year, and then what ability did I develop? What capacities did I develop? What competencies did I develop? What new skills did I develop? You know, what did I say that I would take on? Maybe my reading, maybe some habits. So look at all those questions, reflect overall, one by one. And sometimes an hour is not enough, sometimes 2 3 hours,
Yeah.
and writing it down, because if you do a mental gymnastic, mostly it won't. When things are in front of you on a paper or on your computer, on you know a word file or whatever, it's crystal clear, it's all in front of you, not in the background. And at some point, as you do the exercise, what emerges is the space of wholeness, completeness. Like there's nothing to fix, nothing wrong, nothing to
Hmm.
improve, nothing to prove, nothing to overcome. So there's a wide open space that emerges, which is the space of creation. And then we can go through life automatic, another day, another week. Or you can be the author of your life, like you author the year, you create the year as a matter of your
Uh,
creation.
that is fantastic. That makes a lot of sense. So, but also I want to call out, right? So a lot of us who are listening to this podcast, people who are who've done a marathon or a half marathon last year,
Yeah,
right? Or taken on some kind of fitness habit. And I find that many of us, in spite of having done that, are left with, oh, I could have gone faster, or I could have lost some additional weight, or things like that, in spite of
yeah,
having done something. So I think talking about regrets, that is the domain of regret. So
yeah,
if you right,
yeah,
if you've done
and
something.
really, and the regret would be some significance to the facts. The fact is, whatever weight you gained is the weight you gained. Whatever weight you
Yeah,
didn't lose is the weight you didn't lose. And whatever
yeah,
the marathon you ran, the speed, whatever, you need to get the facts as the facts. And
yeah,
notice the weight comes from the significance we add to the facts. And
yeah, that's
what messes us up is not the facts, but the significance we add to it.
yeah, yeah. That's gold. That's gold there. So let's just kind of spend some time on that conversation.
Mhm.
So facts, first off, I think a lot in the common lot of us in the common day to day life uh, f- mix up facts and our own experience of what happened, or in
Yeah,
our how we interpret things, right?
yeah,
So a fact is something that is a measurable. It is it is real in some sense. So
yeah,
like if you've lost if you let's talk about weight. I think the weight
yeah,
weight is something everybody struggles with, right?
yeah,
No matter how accomplished athlete you are,
yeah,
if you talk to an athlete, they'll say, oh, I should I should be a little lighter than what I am today.
yeah,
So a weight that shows a number that shows on a weighing scale is a fact.
yeah.
and and I am heavy or I'm light is an interpretation,
That's right.
right? So for the purpose of the audience who are listening to this, uh, I guess what you're saying, Mahesh, is if you set out to lose 10 pounds in
Yeah,
2021 and you lost 8 pounds, that is a fact.
yeah,
and and if you called it, oh, I'm heavy or I'm lazy, those are the meanings or interpretations you're adding on top of it. And so
yeah,
that's what we're talking about in this conversation. What you're saying is, look at that number, and let go of that regret that you did 8 pounds instead of 10 pounds, and
yeah.
and get it to ground zero.
And to share about my own weight, I think you know me since long back. I used to be overweight and I was 90 kilos. And I kept working on it and working on it. And all I had was some improvement from 90 to 80, or maybe max I went down to 85. Then I was back to 90, 92, 94 until I was not working on my weight. I was working on overweight.
Hmm.
So all I had was some improvement, less or more. And then, given the thousands and lakhs of people I had the opportunity to transform, I had two experts who told me something which surprised me. They said, "Do
Mhm.
you know what? We've done enough research on this. There's nothing called overweight. It's hyped up. There's a
Mhm.
whole industry behind it."
Mhm.
And they gave me some facts. I don't know where they are, but it blew my mind. And then I woke up. Hey, I'm not overweight. 90 is 90.
Mhm.
And then I looked at the question, what am I committed to? I said, the
Mhm.
commitment I have is IP-72. And you won't believe it is maybe the 12th or 13th year. I've never seen once my weight going beyond 72. At this point, I'm 68. But last 10, 12 years, ever since I could really get
Mhm.
that sorted out for myself, I am not overweight. My body weight is 90. My body weighs 90. I am not me.
Yeah, yeah.
Can you see it's so personal?
Yes, yes.
And then you keep dealing with that you, and it's
Yeah.
endless. It's a
Yes,
mass
yes.
you deal with which doesn't exist. And then you
Yeah,
don't deal with what you need to deal with about the fact called you're 90. And then there's a fact called you're committed to this 72.
yeah,
And I'm saying this from practical experience. When I got there, it was tons of weight released from my head. I had the freedom to just play the game. And
yeah,
then suddenly all kinds of new openings happened because I was just plainly working on my commitment, not an
mm,
overweight, which
yeah,
is completely unreal.
yeah, yeah.
And working
Absolutely.
with thousands of people, there were people who were 300, 400 pounds. I worked with them. I shared my story with them. And then a couple of months later, they, message me. Oh, can you believe me? That person, I was in that chair, electric chair. Well, you know how much I weigh now? 250 pounds from 400. I
Yeah,
created the commitment. I got the fact. So, like,
yeah,
one
yeah,
thing great is, it's nothing to preach about, but when you practice something, it's so real, then you can make it available to others. And it's the joy to see when others really fulfill on what they are committed to. And the
yeah.
same thing
Absolutely.
about marathons, same thing about people's businesses, about their jobs, about their projects. Life
Yeah,
becomes
absolutely.
pretty powerful and simple then.
Absolutely. So let's spend some time on this whole conversation called overweight, right?
Hmm.
And there are a couple of conversations that exist in the world of recreational, athletics, endurance sports. One is overweight. The other is I'm slow.
Mm.
These are two common conversations that all the audience who's listening to this will relate to.
Mm.
Um, you could be you could, if you look at, I've met people who are perfectly look great, and they would say they experience being overweight. It's like and so what I think, Mahesh, what you're saying is that there is this internal, there's a voice inside our heads that's constantly telling us things. And it happens to me,
Yeah.
and that voice is constantly telling me that you're too heavy to be a runner. And I've been running for the last 12 years,
Yeah.
and I still get that voice. So who I am, who what I become, is a heavy runner. There's no fact to it. The fact of the matter is I am a certain weight and I run. That is a fact. And but the internal voice that keeps telling me is you're overweight, and it adds a whole bunch of stress in
Yeah.
that experience. So that's a powerful, thing to think about for people who are listening, is um, to separate that internal dialogue's judgment about who you are, because you may have said at some point in your life that you're overweight, or somebody must have called you fat, or somebody must have bullied you, and then that just stays with you all your life.
Yeah.
And
And then
right.
people have all kinds of standards and ideals they're trying to fit
Hmm.
into, like the ideal weight
Yeah,
and
ideal
the
weight.
ideal body. There isn't anything ideal. It's what you say, what you create,
Yeah,
because the whole energy and time is spent trying to fit into some ideal that you picked up from some movie or some childhood or some hero or some model that you have, which is
yeah,
completely unrealistic fantasy.
yeah, yeah.
And you
Absolutely
try to
beautiful.
waste your energy trying to fit into some fantasy which doesn't exist in the first place.
Yeah, well said. Beautiful. And then let's zoom into the other part that you talked about, which is commitment, right?
Mm.
Again, just to clarify what that means,
Yeah,
because there's a lot of confusion around what does commitment mean. So commitment versus, um, so let's spend a little time. What does commit in the world of, let's say, fitness?
yeah,
What would commitment mean? Let's spend some time on that. So, like, let's say weight. let's start with weight. So you said instead of focusing on overweight, which is the internal,
Mm-hmm.
dialogue that's telling you you're constantly overweight, 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 you move to saying, I want to get to a certain number, and just that.
Mm. Mm.
That is a commitment. Commitment is I want to get to 72 kgs,
Mm-hmm.
or I want to get to say 190 pounds, or whatever that is
Mm-hmm.
as weight. That is all my what I'm committed to.
Yeah.
Rest of it is all what I is an interpretation around it.
Yeah.
So for folks who are listening to this, a commitment could be maybe that, maybe a certain number to be focused on. Rest of it is all noise.
Mm-hmm.
And or it could be getting to a certain speed in their finish times in their marathons,
Mm-hmm.
or you know, or getting to Mount Everest this year, whatever that
Mm-hmm.
is. That could be a
Mm-hmm.
commitment, right?
Yeah.
So just wanted to make sure the audience kind of gets a sense of what we're
Yeah.
talking about here.
And the first thing with that question, Santosh, is to look and see where does commitment exist. So if I ask you that question, given you in the fitness world, where does commitment actually exist?
So in my saying, in my
That's right.
declaration, isn't it?
That's right. It's in your mouth, nowhere
Yeah.
else. And it is what you say, and then you invest your life in fulfilling what you said. So if you look at the difference between an ordinary human being and an extraordinary human being is what? Ordinary people say many things. It's like hot air. And then their mind takes over and they have the feeling, they have the thought, they have the emotion, and they give a lot of importance to the mind. Tomorrow they have a desire, tomorrow they have a feeling, they go by that.
Hmm.
But the difference between ordinary and extraordinary people is they say this is who they are, and then they give their life to what they said. So if you look at all those great people we refer to, like Mahatma Gandhi ji, Nelson Mandela, Martin Luther King, like any great leader, they were not born extraordinary. They didn't have any special abilities, special degrees. So let's take Gandhiji itself. He's an ordinary man. He
Mhm.
stood, he said, he made a commitment, dignity for man, India being free. And guess what? There were circumstances. He got beaten up, put in jail, his colleagues got hanged. But in the face of those emotions, whatever his mind was saying, he honored what he said and had the power to have India be free. Now, just if you take an example of that ordinary man who invested 37 years in fulfilling what he said, and something unthinkable, unimaginable could happen for the people of India, can't we bring that to our well being, our health? And which is what I had to take on after I had the mild stroke this year, which was like surprising. And just this afternoon, I got my results, and all the parameters are within control, unbelievable. Because in our day to day routine, like you said, the dialogue that's happening in the head is all the time running. In fact, we're the slaves of that mind. And the opportunity of this year could be really mastering, being the master of your mind.
Mhm.
And when you can master what the mind is saying and not give it any significance and give all that energy, all the focus on what you said as your commitment, I don't see anything less than a miracle happening.
Yep.
Nothing less than that.
Absolutely beautiful. And I think let's spend a little bit time on the idea of uh, giving your saying, and
Mhm.
that's not something most people are comfortable with. I mean, look, what are you saying?
Mm.
I just say and things happen. No, it doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
There is so many circumstances, there's so many constraints that I have to think through before anything can happen, right? Because that's a very new, it's not a very popular thing to think about saying, um, I said something. So let's kind of zoom into planning for 2022, right?
Hmm.
So you and I were having a conversation, and I said I want to do a half iron in
Yeah.
2022.
Yeah.
Because right, so because I started doing triathlon last year. I started swimming last year, and I did a small triathlon. And for me, when you asked me what's your plan, I said I want to do a half Ironman. And your first question was why not full?
Yeah.
And
That's right.
right. And for me, it was very uncomfortable when you asked
Yeah.
me that question. I said, no,
Yeah.
full me, no way,
Yeah.
not in
Yeah.
2022. You know,
Yeah.
because and then if I were to kind of distill that back to what you're saying now, which is on if I have a choice right now to say I will do a full iron.
Mm.
It's a matter of me saying it
Yeah.
and then backing it up with actions to make that happen.
Yep.
But it's a matter of me saying it.
That's right. And then look, right here is a perfect example of how the mind is running the show. Because
Yes.
whatever doubt you have doesn't exist on the ground.
Mm.
It is that chatter going on in your head,
Yeah.
which you
Yeah.
misidentifies you. Whatever the mind says is what you think you can and what you can't do.
Yeah.
Now, what has me challenge people that way, the way I challenged you, which was like, half running that half was a big deal for you,
It is. It still
Ironman.
is.
And then I say full. Yeah, because who I am in my own constitution is someone who's out to create for people what's the unthinkable, what's unimaginable for them. So, given that's my constitution, then I hear, is that really unthinkable, unimaginable, or is it doable?
Mm.
See, that's the difference between a mediocre person and a champion. Champion break their records. They take on the unthinkable, unimaginable. Now, coming to the creation of this year, I think we're in the right space to look at 2022.
Mhm.
So maybe a worthwhile exercise, Santosh, should be to look and see with regard to your marathon and whatever running you did. What is incomplete? So you have a clean slate. Because without a clean slate, you can't create a new record, like a new
Mhm.
record which has no reference to any of your past history. So that is where I practice. You know, I don't know whether you heard of this Merlin principle. Merlin was a mentor of Prince Arthur. Finally, he became the king of England, like maybe the 11th century or whatever that is. And Merlin created with King Arthur the future, living life from forward from the future, backward in time.
Mhm.
See, victorious warriors, they win the war first and then they go to war.
Mm.
People who climbed Mount Everest, they stand in the peak first, then they look down, then they find the path. Mediocre people try to climb Mount Everest, they climb and climb, it gets steeper, steeper, some of them die on the way because it's the default direction human beings are living their life from the past, doing whatever they could do in the moment, and then looking at a future called someday, one day, maybe. But what really gives me enormous power is when I stand in the future. So, for example, you have no idea how you can run this full marathon or Ironman, whatever you're taken on.
No idea.
Why? Because even if you look at how would you do it, where would you look from? Is
From what?
somebody else's record plus your own record of what you've done so far, which is limiting.
Mhm.
So
Exactly.
let me offer you a new way to look at life.
Mhm.
So what's the date today?
Today is what, 29th of
Yeah.
December. Yeah.
Which year? What's the year?
2021.
Can you see the thinking there? Default. You're not standing at the end of the year,
Mm,
31st December 2022, standing there.
mm,
Like I said, those people who climbed Mount Everest they stood in the peak first.
mm,
See, this business of how will I do it messes you up because where are you going
mm,
to go
mm,
to look answer the question? How will you do it? You will
mm,
look for some reference, and that is inherently limiting, constraining, and that's where you get trapped in a box. Then,
mm.
so if you stood
Makes
in the
sense.
future, so what's the date today? Let me ask you that again.
December 31st, 2022.
That's right. So now stand there and you actually have accomplished your commitment. What is
Mm,
the picture of that? So if you look at that white canvas that is there,
mhm,
you can paint the picture, like really get creative about having already accomplished that. Stand there.
mm,
And
mm,
everybody listening, this could be about your weight, this could be about your business, this could be about your job, this could be about your family, the quality of your marriage, relationships, those of your students, about your studies, whatever. Stand there
mhm,
and listen, it's all here in your mouth. It's what you say, paint it. Now forget
mm,
about how. Stand there, it's done because you say so, because you are committed to that. And then the whole year give life to what you said. Take actions, consider what you said. So, what is that picture? Santosh, if I ask you, that picture standing, what are you painting? Can you see you're not limited?
yeah.
Are you free? Are you tied
Yeah.
down to any limit?
No. I'm standing and I'm having this conversation on December 31st, 2022, maybe again with you. And
Yeah,
I'm saying, hey, I got it done.
that's right.
I'm an Iron Man.
Yeah. It's not you got it done, you already done.
Yeah.
See, got it done is again reaching there.
Mm,
There's no place to reach. You already reached there. See, the place to reach is Mount Everest. No, you're not going there. You're already there.
mm,
And from there, you're looking backward in time. It is like reverse reengineering.
mm,
And then you can create milestones monthly, weekly. Then you can look from there to fulfill that, what support you need. Maybe you may need a coach. I don't know, whatever.
mm. Yeah. Makes
Because
sense.
if you're up to a big game, obviously you need to develop new ability, new capacity, new competencies, and that's where you need a coach.
Mm,
And I'm sure from that vision that you created standing in the future, people will show up, you'll begin to see, you will see connections, because something begins to shift in your space where people actually do show up, all kinds of connections.
yeah.
That's the power of living in this new direction. And that's why I
Yeah.
call
Yeah.
Merlin the magician. It's magical, magical.
Yeah. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
And now when I'm taking on something bigger, it's again, it makes sense to just come from the same place.
yeah. And it'll require you being mindful, it'll require you being disciplined. It won't come automatically because automatically what will be at play is that mind, that
Yeah.
dialogue, which is all the time going on, which people misidentify as,
Yeah.
oh, that's me talking.
Mm,
I'm hurt. I'm slow. I can't do it. I'm
yeah.
overweight. It's the same domain, the
Yeah.
mind talking. And then all you'll have in the future is what the mind predicts. And, I was studying neuroscience and recently, and it said that the brain mostly will predict 91% the same patterns.
Mm,
So can you imagine your 2022 being 91% the same as the previous years? Not
Yeah.
You won't jump out of your bed waking up in the morning into that kind of a future which is so predictable.
Yeah.
And what's happening in that mind is thoughts. In a day, some 75,000 thoughts. What is there? Nothing new there. So, well, it
Yeah.
requires discipline, not going there then. Living
Like
life
a
moment by moment as a matter of your creation, as a matter of what you're
yeah.
committed to.
Yeah. Makes sense. I think those are great. Those are that's a great principle to take on for the
Yeah,
new year,
yeah.
and um, like coming from a place of having accomplished, having rather than go to a place or trying to become
It's not a
versus
goal to
or
reach.
it's not a
It's
goal
not
to
a
reach,
goal
but
to reach.
yeah,
You're
it's like
already
constituting.
there. Yeah, you're
Okay.
standing there.
Yeah.
Now, if you look at majority of the human race is not living in that direction. So my little wisdom would be, like a smart idea would be, to have people around you live in that direction. Because more people think that way, more people live that way, that's part of your oxygen. And the more people think that way, more people around you live that way. And it's just not about fitness or whatever, like every aspect. And they have lots to share, what they accomplished. Can you imagine the celebration, the joy, the fulfillment of living an accomplished life?
Yep. Absolutely. And I think people who listen to this podcast, who are mostly recreational athletes or people who are committed to well-being, will relate to that
Yeah,
in some way.
yeah,
Um,
like, and the people listening, I request that you take it on in every aspect. I have people who had businesses. They said, "Oh, I have this small little place in London, but I want to have at least 5 times that." I said, "By when?" "Oh, that may take at least 5, 6 years." I said, "On what basis do you say that?" And he says, "Yeah, that'll require a lot of saving money, blah, blah." I said, "Well, you'll never do it. It gets tougher and tougher and tougher, living life that direction." So I said, "If anything is possible, unthinkable, unimaginable, tell me by when do you want to have that happen?" I said, "Next year." This is 2015 and this is 2016. And guess what? 2016, I was there in London, inaugurated a shop 5 times. They didn't know where the money will. Everything fell in place. Same thing with doctors. They said, "I want to start my own hospital. I don't have the money." I said, "By when do you want to do it?" He said, "This era." I said, "Done. I'll come and cut the ribbon." And they have the hospitals, and today they have some 5 hospitals. And he didn't have money to pay 20 lakhs for the building advance, and now it's worth 100 crore or more than that. Unbelievable. Like every aspect. And that is why when you asked me to be on this podcast, it was a joy to be with you to create this for people listening, the world, and who knows what we can make available for mankind this year. Given the challenging last 2 years of COVID and whatnot, the world has got maybe the time 2022 like a launch into a new paradigm. And sure, fitness is a big deal. Like I heard all my childhood, health is wealth.
yeah.
It's great.
Absolutely. Beautiful. Mahesh, that was I think quite a bit that to chew on for
Mm,
folks, for me, and for folks who are listening to this.
yeah,
Um, Thanks for sharing your time and wisdom. Um, and I, from all our side, I want to wish everybody a fantastic 2022, And, maybe we'll come back at the end of 2022 and have this conversation again.
Sure, why not? Why not? It would be a privilege and a real joy to be in this space. And
Thank
I
you, Mahesh.
wish and I wish all the listeners and you and your family a very, very happy new year. Not just another happy new year, but a year which is unthinkable, unimaginable, a creation of your own, where you are the author of everything in your life. Like you say, and things happen, and you do have the ability. Doesn't matter what the past history says. So do not engage in that mind which will have thoughts. I can't do that. It's hard. It's difficult. They don't exist.
Yeah, beautiful. Thanks, Mahesh. I'll let you go. And you have a fantastic rest of the evening.
Sure.
Have a great one. Thank you
You
so
have a
much.
great time there. I think it's a great morning there for you.
Yes.
All
Thank
right,
you.
then. Catch up soon.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.